And we didn't talk about this is something that I like to talk about. There's also a benefit to the utility companies on this as well. You know, in the short term, it might look like, oh, we're taking away revenue from them potentially. But with all the increased demand on electricity with EVs and now potentially a new data centers, AI, you name it, there's going to be such high demand for electricity over the next decade that utilities are clogged up with transformers. They can't add central power plants that quickly anymore, or never been able to really. But now with putting essentially creating, people call these VPPs, virtual power plants. I don't like to call them VPP. They're actual power plants. They are small power plants, but thousands of them. And
Yeah.
IV essentially enables thousands of small power plants on apartment buildings.
Yeah,
And
whether you want to call it a VPP or a microgrid, right? Microgrid is kind of the new
yeah,
popular
that has the
popular term.
connotation that it's kind of islanded on its own. It's not. We're still connected to the
Well,
utility too, right?
of course, yeah, yeah, but I think this whole microgrid idea is an important thing, and there's always
Yep.
like, what are we doing today versus what does this look like in the future? And I do think when it really starts to benefit the utility as when we are taking some of this almost offline, right? When you have self-consumption or
Right.
a very high percentage of it self-consumption within the area which is where which the
Yep.
electricity is being produced. And obviously there's some good and bad in VNEM from going to VNEM 2.0 to
Sure.
3.0. Obviously, everybody knows what it's done to residential solar from NEM to NEM 3.0 and commercial. But I think the plus side to it is forcing this battery installation. You look at Sunrun's numbers, for instance. Look
Yeah,
at
90% battery attachment rates in the
attachment
last couple
rate.
of quarters. Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
incredible.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so we foresee like multifamily, multi-unit to kind of start to head in that same direction. Obviously, battery costs have to keep coming down, and the more we deploy, the cheaper that's going to become. And the reason I bring that up is like IB at our core right now, we are a billing software platform, right? But we already have products that we are working on today, and where we see our future going is really this kind of data center of these microgrids. And I think the beautiful thing about especially multifamily, right? You have
Yeah.
three, sometimes two, three, 400 units in this
Yeah.
one community. It's kind of
Yeah.
the perfect, I would say, structure for creating these microgrids. Like it's far more
Sure.
difficult to do it when you're trying to do a whole community with multifamily
Yeah.
houses and apartments and there's some experimentation going on with that. But I think the cool thing about we have is we have this captive audience that all live together, that communicate together, that
Yeah.
are all paying the same landlord for their rent. And so I think it's a really interesting place for us to be to kind of lead the way nationally in developing these what we're calling microgrids today.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.